Today everybody, as the title suggests, we're going to touch on a BattleBit technique that should improve your game in almost every single way. With this technique, almost every part of the map becomes accessible. You can flank your enemies at will, capture any objective you can set your mind on, and find some gross spots behind enemy lines to put down your squad beacon. Yes, this is not a clickbait title. Today I'm going to show you how to airdrop anywhere in BattleBit. Now the most important aspect of this technique is that it requires two people. So you're either going to want a cooperating random person or a friend in your squad to help you out. For you see, the way that the airdrop works is that while one person is falling down on the map, the other person is in the respawn menu spamming deploy. And for most of the trip downwards, where you're going to get the familiar message that you can't deploy on someone who is falling, once that person reaches a certain distance from the ground, you're going to be able to deploy on them in a manner that's not going to cause you any damage. Then from there you have two options. You can either revive the squad member who just fell, or if you have a nice enough friend, you can go right out into the battlefield and do what you need to do, whether that's placing squad beacons or capturing objectives. There's really thousands of different things that you can do when you can be so far behind enemy lines. And speaking of awesome friends, I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Peanut Butter in this video, as he is the reason I'm able to record so many of these clips. Mr. Peanut Butter, I'm so terribly sorry for ruining your KD. Thank you again, and now back to the video. And while a helicopter just dropping you off in any one of these locations could probably replicate this idea, I think this method is a much more incognito way of doing this. And honestly, I'm not even sure how I discovered this method. I think it was just kind of an accident one day in game, and I realized oh wow, I wonder if this is replicable. Because I'm not even sure how this method is possible. I think it has something to do with the fact that the game allows players to deploy in what seems like a small window, but is actually a pretty big window between when the server recognizes that a player is dead from an impact of a fall versus when they are 3 or 4 feet off the ground from that same fall. But before you click off this video and jump right into a BattleBit match to use this awesome method, I want to present some caveats that you have to look out for while you're airdropping. First, you must be careful when trying to do this over water. I haven't tested it with all depths of water, but I know semi-deep to deep water this method will not work. And while this may limit the scope of this ability a little bit, I'm willing to bet that it would probably work if there was a boat in water. So technically, any part of the map in water becomes available as long as there's a structure there to land on. Another problem that is slightly more frustrating is being unable to deploy on someone when they are in combat. As you can probably guess, if someone gets in combat while they are falling, it makes it a lot harder to spawn on them as they approach the ground. Plus, in my opinion, the way that the game identifies that someone is in combat is a little finicky to me. In my experience, there are instances where it seems that players are quote-unquote in combat when they're not fighting at all. Or after they have been in combat, the status takes a while to go away when they're finally in safety. Consequently, you probably want to avoid getting in combat at any point while you're falling. For that reason, I would suggest not falling out of the helicopter as it's getting shot at, nor do you want to fall in the path of a cognizant player who's paying attention, because even if they're shooting at you and missing you, you'll probably still be in combat. However, with this being said, I want to emphasize that it is still possible to drop on hotspot objectives. You just have to be careful when falling to the ground not to get into combat. And one more small issue that may just be a personal preference of mine, but you might want to find someone who's good at flying helicopters, because in my experience, many of the pilots in game aren't the best. But this is understandable as this is a new game and there's a lot of new players learning the controls and such. Anyways, if you're still with me, I would like to present to you now some fun things you can do with this airdrop method. And this is definitely not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there are plenty of creative ways you can use this technique to better augment your game. So in no particular order, I first think you could use this method to surprise vehicles. As an assault player, I already like to target vehicles, and this method allowed me to sneak up on a bunch of unsuspecting tank users, so that's fun. The next thing that I think is possible is kind of becoming your own personal airstrike. You could jump out of the helicopter and throw grenades in C4 and either let them explode in the air or wait on the ground and then detonate your C4 after you've been revived, but I think there's a ton of possibility in that realm too. Another thing that I haven't tried but I would love to see is, instead of an airstrike on infantry, trying to do an airstrike or an attack on helicopters in the air while falling from the helicopter. Just imagine being able to take out tanks or helicopters, then land on the ground and get revived by a buddy all in one life. It just sounds insane to me. Anyways, that pretty much wraps up this video. If you want me to try to find any more fun techniques in game, please tell me and I'll go experimenting. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like or a comment. Maybe subscribe if you're feeling frisky, I don't know. Anywho, like always, thank y'all so much for watching.
Where the